How you doing, folks? Welcome back to WrestleRant. I'm Graham Jason Matthews. Today here on WrestleRant, we're talking about Over the Limit 2010 as seen on the WWE Network. If you haven't already, check out my past installments of WrestleRant, talking about Over the Edge 98 and 99, the Owen Hart Tragedy Show, talking about the post-WrestleMania Raws from 2012 to 2015, Extreme Rules 2015, and also coming up not next Saturday, or this Saturday rather, we're talking about Over the Limit 2012. I talked about Over the Limit 2011 2 years ago, I think, here in WrestleRant, so you can check out that review from 2 years ago, and then after Over the Limit reviews are up, there were only 3 installments. This one, 2010, 2011, which I talked about 2 years ago, and 2012, which we'll talk about on Saturday, or next week. I don't know when this is going up. I'm recording so far in advance, I really have no idea. It's one of those cases again. But beyond that, it's Payback 2015, and then after that, I think we are doing Vengeance reviews, which are exciting, so I love that show, so I can't wait for that. But anyway, Over the Limit 2010. This was one of those weird shows that I was a fan for, yet I never saw in its entirety until literally like this week. Like this pay-per-view, aired, it initially occurred 6 years ago. I was a fan at that time. This was before I started watching pay-per-views online or buying them or whatever. I mean, I bought Royal Rumble 2010, but every other pay-per-view after that, for the most part, I did not buy because then it was worth my money, and it was a lot of money too, even if it was worth my money. But Over the Limit 2010, I never watched until just recently, and for good reason, because it wasn't a good show. And this show, I think, kind of left a sour taste in my mouth for future installments. There were parts of the 2011 show that I really liked, like Orton and Christian, one of my favorite matches from 2011, but the rest of the show was a shit show. In 2012, I'm actually in the process of watching right now. I can't wait to review it on, next week or Saturday or whatever, because I think that show is really underrated, despite the shitty-ass main event between John Cena and John Laurinaitis. We'll get to it when we get to it, but what I'm trying to say is that Over the Limit, I'm not shocked it's no longer around and we have Payback instead, because 2011 and 2010 fucking sucked. I talked about my 2011 review 2 years ago, if you want to go back and check that out. That was really fun to review, because that show was awful. This show was kind of awful in a different way. I just didn't really think it was worth my time. Anyway, hopefully this review is worth your time, though, so don't click out just yet. The opening match for the Intercontinental Championship, Kofi Kingston beating Drew McIntyre for the title in a very entertaining match. The whole storyline behind this was that McIntyre got suspended from SmackDown and storyline for beating the shit out of Matt Hardy, I think it was. And the then SmackDown GM Teddy Long suspended him, vacating the Intercontinental Championship. A tournament was held to crown a new IC champion. In the tournament finals, Kofi Kingston beat Christian, and then Kofi Kingston was the new champion. Out comes Drew McIntyre. He had the decision to have him suspended and the championship taken away from him, overruled by Mr. McMahon. So in the process, the championship went back to him, and then they faced off for the title on the show, Kingston and McIntyre. Keeping the title on McIntyre for a little while longer probably would have been the right move, because I felt like by this point, after losing to Taker and Kane and Matt Hardy and suffering like 5 singles defeats in the matter of only a few weeks, they really kind of hindered his momentum a little bit, and he didn't really feel as special anymore, like he was really all that special to begin with. But he was being touted as the chosen one at one point, the future world champion, so just keep that in mind. But the match itself was really, really good. I thought this was good in the opening slot. At only 6 minutes, it really should have gone a lot longer, also considering that, R-Truth and Teddy DiBiase went longer than this match did. That was kind of a disgrace, but Kofi Kingston won on the SOS. Really good match. Afterwards, McIntyre grabs the mic, demands that Teddy Long come out and give him his rematch or overrule the decision or whatever. And out comes Matt Hardy instead. And those two brawl. Matt Hardy gets the best of Drew McIntyre to continue that feud. And they never had a one-on-one pay-per-view match. And it's funny now because they're currently feuding in TNA over the TNA World Heavyweight Championship, so it's funny to think that, all these years later, they're finally rekindling that rivalry. But anyway, a good match that probably just could have used more time, and a good, title change to kick off the night. On a night that really didn't really have much newsworthy moments about it. R-Truth versus Teddy DiBiase in a match that kind of stemmed from Teddy DiBiase asking R-Truth to be his Virgil of sorts. So is that racist or is that just me? So anyway, the real Virgil ended up coming back to align with Teddy DiBiase, albeit for a short time, maybe for like a few weeks, 3 weeks, a month at that. I think that might be being generous there. It wasn't very long at all, but he was in the corner of Teddy DiBiase Jr. For this matchup against R-Truth. Kind of a dead match. I mean, people liked R-Truth, but I don't know if they really knew to take him seriously. I know he would win the U.S. Championship the next night on Raw, so this feud was cut short. It was only for this pay-per-view. It never went any longer than that. It was an all-right match, but Teddy DiBiase just needed momentum. He lost at WrestleMania when he should have won, and he felt like the loser coming out of Legacy. I mean, Cody Rhodes would go on to reinvent himself as dashing and Orton was already over as Randy Orton, and Ted DiBiase, despite having the $1 million championship and everything else, he just didn't feel special. I don't know. They gave him Virgil, they gave him the championship, they gave him a race. Nothing seemed to work. He really wouldn't develop his own personality until he went babyface like a fucking year and a half later. And by that point, it was way too late. So they really wanted to get behind him, but they really weren't giving him the wins necessary for people to take him seriously. But anyway, decent match. R-Truth won. In my personal opinion, the match of the night up next between Rey Mysterio and CM Punk, 2 wins apiece between the two men at WrestleMania and Extreme Rules respectively. If Rey Mysterio won, CM Punk would have to shave his head, but if CM Punk won, Rey Mysterio would have to join the Straight Edge Society. They had a really good underrated match at WrestleMania 26. Their match at Extreme Rules was also pretty good. Easily the best bout between these two throughout the series of their matches in 2010. Great fucking match, especially down the line. I mean, especially down the stretch. And that's why Rey Mysterio had such great chemistry with Chris Jericho, because they kind of reinvented the formula. They wouldn't go back to the same tired spots, the same standard formulaic matchup. They really switched it up and did reversals when you didn't expect it and stuff like that. That's why I really enjoyed these two working against each other, because they were the perfect rivals. Not only in storyline character-wise, but also in-ring rivals too. Had some very, very good chemistry together. So great match. The only thing I would say about it that worked against the match was the fact they had to stop it early on and kind of cut the momentum short after Punk got busted open. He was bleeding afterwards anyway, so it's not really like it mattered. He was bleeding as Rey Mysterio was pinning him for the win. But I really liked the finish too. I think it was Punk, he went for the GTS, and Rey Mysterio got out of it into a 619. He reversed into a 619, which was really cool. Went for the splash, and he missed. Punk got out of the way, so a great camera angle there, and I like the shit on the camera angles, but that was pretty cool. Missed, and CM Punk took way too long to pin him. He kind of nonchalantly covered him, and in doing so, Rey Mysterio rolled him up. Got the shoulders down for a 3 count to score the victory. The SES came out afterwards, Luke Gallows, Serena, and the Masked Man that would later be revealed to be Joey Mercury. They came out to kind of prevent the stipulation from coming to fruition and attacking Rey Mysterio. Kane came to the aid of Rey Mysterio. So Rey Mysterio was able to shave the head of Punk, and he would go bald from that point forward for the remainder of 2010. That was a great sight to see, and having to handcuff CM Punk, and Punk was just crying like, oh no, I don't want to see myself, and just amazing storytelling, great match, and really the only, spotlight, the only real high point of this pay-per-view for me. After that, for the unified WWE Tag Team titles, the Hart Dynasty, David Hart Smith and Tyson Kidd successfully defended the gold against Chris Jericho and The Miz. Jericho and Miz, I thought that tag team really should have ran a lot longer than it did. They only were together for a couple of weeks to feud with the Hart Dynasty. And then beyond that, they were in the Money in the Bank ladder match, and Miz went on his own, which was good, but Jericho felt wasted on Raw. He was pretty much doing nothing for most of that year before he left the company that September. They pretty much wasted him on Raw for a majority of 2010, which sucked because he was the world champion at one point, and then 2 months later, he's fucking facing the Hart Dynasty. And don't get me wrong, it was a good match, but the tag team division desperately needed help. They had no other tag teams to challenge for the Hart Dynasty, really. The Usos at that point, the Usos actually just debuted the next night, so they would have to bring in a new tag team to add to the tag team division because the tag team division fucking sucked. Because Vance Archer wasn't doing anything, or Kurt Hawkins and Vance Archer, who I think were together by that point, weren't doing much. We had the Dude Busters, who weren't doing much either, so they really needed help in the tag team division, and this would, help add to that. But anyway, a good match otherwise. After that, Edge versus Randy Orton. Edge attacked Randy Orton on his first night on Monday Night Raw, the 2010 WWE Draft, which kicked off this reincarnation of their long-dated rivalry, dating back to 2004 when they feuded over the Intercontinental Championship. So the match was a real disappointment. They got about 13 minutes, I think, 12, 13 minutes. I'm looking at Wiki now. It says about 13 minutes. And I was really looking forward to this because I thought they would have great chemistry into the former Rated RKO tag team partners. And they did have good chemistry in their other matches in 04 and in 07 and now 3 years later in 2010. It seemed like every 3 years they would have a feud of some sort, and unfortunately that trend did not continue into 2013 because Edge had to retire in 2011. Not like he would have anyway, because he probably would have retired in 2012 had he not retired in 2011 when he did so abruptly. But they would have had good chemistry had it not been for Orton's injury, and the first half of the matchup was really slow, and before they could pick up the pace, Orton got hurt doing the whole, smack into the mat, doing that whole thing, and he hurt his shoulder, and it was really weird how it happened. He smacked the mat, and all of a sudden he starts tending to his shoulder. And he kicks Edge to ringside. It looked like he was going to hit an RKO there or whatever, and they were going to go to the finish. But he kicked Edge to ringside. The referee tended to Randy Orton. He was gingerly walking around because he couldn't really, couldn't feel anything in his shoulder. It was really weird. He kind of it was odd, really slowly walking around ringside, and Edge went for a spear. They improvised the finish. Edge went for a spear, collided with the barricade, and Orton just kind of stood there. So they were both, Edge's storyline was hurt, but he was, working it. He was working the injury, but Orton was legitimately hurt, and they had to end the match, and ended in a double countout. It's a real disappointment there. Orton was out of action for only a couple of weeks. He was back in action in time for the tag team match, or rather the Fatal 4-Way match for the WWE Championship a few weeks later, but he just couldn't continue this contest. So the match really wasn't what it could have been, so that was a real disappointment. After that, for the World Heavyweight Championship, Big Show taking on Jack Swagger for the gold. Again, not even a disappointment, just the match wasn't good. It was just as long as the Divas title match, which went to show how good it was. They just didn't have good chemistry. Jack Swagger was not really a strong, legitimate contender as world champion. People just couldn't take him seriously. He was a fucking loser. He was a loser before his reign. He was a loser during his reign as world champion. He was a loser after his reign as world heavyweight champion. And Big Show had just went babyface. He was knocking Swagger out left and right. They just needed to build up Jack Swagger, and they failed to do so that spring. And the match went all of 5 minutes before Swagger got himself disqualified. It's like, oh, great, another fuck finish. And another fuck finish before this wasn't intended, but it's like 2 in a row. Come on, really? So that fucking sucked. After that, for the Divas Championship, Eve defending against Maurice in an all-right match. Served the 5 minutes that it was given. A serviceable match. That's about it. Eve's still Divas Champion. Main event, the I Quit match for the WWE Championship. John Cena defending against Batista. A feud I really, really liked. I loved their match at SummerSlam 08. I loved their match at WrestleMania 26. I even liked the Last Man Standing match at Extreme Rules 2010. I just thought this match, when I first saw it a couple years ago, I didn't like it. And I don't like it now. I just felt like it was really boring. A lot of time spent setting up big spots, and the big spots were cool. I just don't really think it was worth the time that it was given. And I Quit matches traditionally just aren't my cup of tea. Do you want to quit? No. Do you want to quit now? No. Are you sure you want to quit? No, I'm not sure. I am sure. I don't know. It's like the whole referee mic thing, I just never really got that. It's always annoyed me for whatever reason. So, I don't know. I didn't really like this match at all. I thought it was a good match. Not as good as their past encounters from Extreme Rules, SummerSlam, WrestleMania, so on and so forth. A good fitting way of closing out the feud. John Cena looked like an asshole after Batista already quit, and he put him through the steel ramp anyway, as CM Punk would point out many months later at the end of 2010. He said, "You AA Dave Batista ending his career, facilitating the end of his career, and you showed no remorse for the injury that you gave Dave Batista," as CM Punk said many months later, as I said. But yeah, like I said, a good match. It's just I Quit matches. I don't like them. I don't know. I just don't. Just because the whole, do you want to quit? Do you want to quit? Do you want to quit? No. It's stupid. It's stupid. Just ask them when they want to quit, when it's time for them to quit. Don't ask them every 10 seconds. It gets fucking annoying. But yeah, just kind of a really boring I Quit match. Not what it could have been, and not as good as their past encounters. So that was over the... Oh, I forgot to mention too, Sheamus attacked John Cena afterwards, and that set up, Sheamus getting involved in the WWE Championship picture come Fatal 4-Way, where he would win the championship. And hopefully, I probably will cover that pay-per-view at some point, probably even next month. I don't know. I think I will. Now, looking back on it now, I have the whole lineup, not in front of me, but I have it somewhere on my computer, and I think I am covering Fatal 4-Way in June, I think. We'll see. I don't know. Not like I really need to. The pay-per-view sucked. But yeah, Over the Limit 2010, not a good show. The only real highlight, as I mentioned, was Rey Mysterio and Punk. So do not sit through almost 3 hours of this event. You would be wasting your time drastically. Edge and Orton was a disappointment because it wasn't what it could have been. Big Show and Swagger was a waste of time. The main event was all right. Not worth your time sitting through. I would suggest watching their other matches from Extreme Rules, SummerSlam, and WrestleMania before this one. Truth and DiBiase was all right, but it was just kind of there. The title change was nice. Kind of kicked out the show on a high note, but it was all downhill from there. And the tag team title match was just kind of there too. So a really, really forgettable show. Not the first greatest installment of Over the Limit. Like I said, the 2011 show sucked too, which I talked about 2 years ago. So don't be confused or baffled as to why, why isn't he reviewing Over the Limit 2011? Is it because he didn't like the show? No, I didn't like the show, but I covered it anyway 2 years ago. So that's why my next WrestleRant video will be covering Over the Limit 2012, which was a much better installment from its two predecessors. So I'll look forward to that in the days to come. But in the meantime and in between time, be sure to find me on these socials, on Twitter at WrestleRant, on Facebook at facebook.com/graham.gsm.matthews. Give the Pagano thumbs up. And last but not least, be sure to visit the website at nextwrestling.net and like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel. Like the video, comment, and share it as well. All your support is amazingly appreciated. So until next time, guys, I'm Graham Jason Matthews. Have a great rest of your week, weekend, whatever it might be when you're listening to this, and I'll catch you folks down the road.